So welcome everybody to our session today. We are here and very happy to be here today with you in this session, Fostering Products and Services for Energy, Water, Sanitation and Hygiene, WASH, and other environmental protection activities. My name is Natalia Real Becarrillo. I am Director of Edera Sustainable Solutions, Cluster Fellow at the Institute for Advanced Sustainability Studies, and co-head of the Green Inclusive and Climate Smart Finance Action Group of the European Microfinance Platform. I will emphasize that today we are going to talk about fostering and positive view of how to combine microfinance to access to basic services and environment protection activities. I think that after a decade, we have already covered a lot of when we are talking about challenges and hurdles, or why energy, or why water and sanitation and microfinance. So for this, and the purpose of this session is to show you some protagonists and key players that have already started their engagement in environmental protection in the microfinance sector, and see what are their plans ahead, how are they doing, what are their achievements, what partnerships will be key in their activities, and from my side to encourage and to emphasize on the basic element of understanding what is the needs of their clients, and this not in a subjective way, but with very standard indicators that institutions can monitor and keep track of how this access to the service is improved. Not in a binary way, to have or not to have, but in the different layers and quality that it is possible to measure. Hence, then let me start with this. I will give a brief introduction on why it's important to understand the needs, and then we will go directly with the presentations. So when we're talking about combining microfinance with access to basic services, we have seen already how this model works. We have on one side, a supplier associating with a microfinance institution, delivering both to the consumer, and then the consumer having already a flow of communication with the microfinance institution or the supplier, and also how the supply chain works. So this model we will see for the different basic services. We were talking today in the morning about WASH, and we have been already covering this topic on energy access in several conferences, but here to show you how this model works, and everything consumer-centric, as this is the person most important for all of us in the value chain. So when we're talking about understanding the needs from Edera, we are delivering tools for data collection, for boosting this microfinance as a vehicle to access basic services and environment protection with standard objective frameworks in order to analyze detailed household needs, including photos and audios, and also in remote areas, and being able to track the progress at client level. And this, when we're talking about the frameworks, it is frameworks that have been developed by the World Bank as the multi-tier framework from the Energy Sector Management Assistance Program, or the Joint Monitoring Program from the World Health Organization and UNICEF, where they have already established standard indicators that is possible to compare along countries all over the world. And this is standard: how many hours of electricity, how clean is the drinking water, how is it provided, and if it's possible to have sanitation services or not. I want to show you a very brief case how microfinance institution can do it. This is Palmis in Haiti from Entrepreneur du Monde. We have done a data collection with Eugénie Costanzis from Entrepreneur du Monde and project manager Rogenet George. And we have analyzed how is the power sources, how are the cooking fuels in different regions of Haiti. And here is the emphasis: how important it is to have these indicators where we can see how is the clean water, the sanitation facilities, hygiene practices, how is the drinking water supply, the sanitation facilities, and this in the standard already evaluations from the JMP. So we will be sharing with you some links to this type of work so that you can see how it's possible for microfinance institutions to have a deeper view of the needs of clients in order that based on these needs, then institutions can develop their products and services. And ideally that by the end of your intervention or through the intervention, everybody is in the best service, safely managed, sanitation safely managed, and with inclusive hand washing, and this for wash, but also for energy, for food security, for women empowerment, for health supply. With this brief introduction, let me give the floor to my co-panelists. So we have from Finance in Motion, Jordan Pace, associate at Finance in Motion. And then we will go through the presentation from Alexandre Borm, who is the director of the Energy Department in Asia and the Caribbean at Entrepreneur du Monde. And then we will close with Alan Perez from CAMIF as project coordinator. And in between the presentations, you will have the opportunity to pose questions to them. We would have changed the modality of this session to a Zoom meeting, so that you can turn on your microphone, turn on your video, interact also with the panelists and get to know more about their achievements. By the end of their presentations, we will have as well a Q&A, and as well, we will be sharing links to their work at the end so that you can explore them further. So with this, let me give the floor to Jordan.
Thank you, Natalia, as well as for the introduction to this panel, and thank you to the organizers, and good afternoon, everybody joining us today. If you wanted to go to the next slide, Natalia. In fact, we could skip to the next one as well. But my name is Jordan Pace. I work at Finance in Motion, which is an impact asset manager. And I work for a team that advises the Green for Growth Fund. And we oversee the strategy as well as the technical assistance for the GGF, as we call it. And the GGF has for a goal to accelerate the energy transition in the regions around the European Union. And we specifically do this through energy efficiency, renewable energies, and resource efficiency. And in practical terms, what this often looks like, and especially in the case of MFIs, is that we extend financing to MFI partners, and they then lend that to businesses or households in their client base, and they can use that money for specific green measures that we organize with them. And so the fund is supported by a number of public, IFI, and private investors. And I think as I'm here to also talk about TA, it's important to understand that our TA facility sits side by side the fund, but is independent and has for a mission to support the activities of the fund as well as support the partners of the fund. So if you wanted to go to the next slide, Natalia. And so we work in a number of markets across 3 regions, and this gives a nice snapshot of our activities. And today, a lot of the context that I'll be giving applies to the Southeastern Europe region, because that's where the majority of our partnerships with MFIs, the majority of our financing, and the majority of our technical assistance projects occur. Next slide, please. And so I'd like to give an overview of the fund before getting into the technical assistance and specifically our work with MFIs. To date, we've delivered 1.2 billion euros in green finance, which is nearly 1 million tons of CO2 reduction per year. And we've done this across 43,000 subloans, which we're able to individually track and monitor. And our MFI partners represent 38% of these subloan portfolio, so nearly 18,000 end borrowers. And I think for the context of this panel, in terms of products and services, what's important to understand about the fund is the fund itself is a commercial vehicle. So we lend money at interest rates and tenors that are broadly in line with what you would find in the market. And so the opportunities that we identify with our partners really have to work for the end clients, for the MFIs, as well as meeting our both eligibility criteria, but also meeting our very high environmental standards. And so unfortunately, we find that there's not as much activity around, say, for example, WASH, but where we have a great model that's mobilized quite a lot of funding for end clients is in energy efficiency measures. And this primarily focuses on retail and household clients, and specifically around renovating buildings for energy efficiency measures such as insulation, replacements of doors and windows, heating, as well as energy efficiency appliances. And these are really impactful measures, excuse me. If you look at them kind of from a euro invested impact, they're very, very high impact. So going to the next slide, please. And so coming to technical assistance, our technical assistance facility sits side by side with the fund and really helps to support partners both in their capacity, maybe helping them to identify shortcomings such as in environmental and social management systems, as well as helping them to use and mobilize our financing so that we see this real investments and real impact in the economy. I would say historically our TA kind of falls into three categories. One is around product portfolio screening and and energy efficiency strategy. So formulating with the MFI how to use the money. Then we come to product development and marketing, which is always extremely important to raise the awareness of end clients. I think a key thing to always remember about energy efficiency investments is that there's high upfront investment costs and then reduced operational costs over the lifetime of the investment. So it's usually a net positive for clients, but has an upfront cost that needs to be communicated. At least the returns on investment need to be communicated. And then we have our capacity building that can range from using our monitoring tool to strengthening the environmental safeguards of our partners, or any other kind of green or sustainable finance topics that are relevant to MFIs. And lastly, I'll just say that we spend a lot of time and really work hand in hand to make sure that technical assistance is flexible and adapted to the needs of each partner institution. Next slide, please. And so I just wanted to give a small example of what a marketing campaign can look like. This was run with an MFI in Montenegro a few years back called Energy Doctor. It's a multimedia campaign, but specifically had energy doctors with the energy gun going to clients and potential clients of the MFI. They could see the gun. It was kind of interesting for the end clients, but it also allowed them to have their building envelopes assessed and then get recommendations on really simple ways they could both enhance the energy efficiency of the building, but also improve the thermal comfort. Because I think that's, as you put it in Italia, the consumer, the end client, that's what really matters. And so a lot of these investments, especially in Southeastern Europe, really enhance the thermal comfort of clients, and they help to reduce air pollution, because in the winter months, a lot of the Western Balkans in particular have some of the most polluted air in the world. So we see these measures as a small but meaningful contribution to reducing those environmental challenges. So next slide, please. And so a couple of years, the GGF, we celebrated 10 years of activity. And as we were sitting there, we were kind of reflecting on what the next 10 years could look like. And I think we had a consensus that we'd be a bit disappointed if we were doing the exact same things in 10 years that we're doing now, if that pie chart that we saw a few slides back hadn't changed its composition and advanced either new technologies or new sectors. And so as we were sitting there reflecting, we realized that there were a number of kind of green technologies that maybe 5-10 years ago were only in a pilot phase, were maybe prohibitively expensive, were maybe only seen in Germany, where I'm based currently. But that in the intervening years, kind of the costs had come down, that an ecosystem had built up in a lot of our markets where you had suppliers and vendors and people who knew how to install and fix these things. And that this was starting to grow. And our theory, because we're a commercial fund, we always frame this in sort of the business opportunity for MFIs. And we really thought that this was an incredible opportunity for MFIs that we work with to be market leaders to be green leaders, to be the first stop for clients looking to make green investments, to be part of the solution to the energy crisis. And we as a fund, obviously, we're interested in having more partners and lending out more money for these investments, but we also felt as an impact fund that we had a mandate to help accelerate the uptake of these technologies in fighting the climate crisis. So if you go to the next slide, we then launched what internally we call the Deep Greening Scaling Initiative. I think that's kind of a fancy name, but really what this was is that by trying to scale newer technologies, we realized we couldn't just stick with kind of portfolio screenings, strategy and simple product development and marketing, and we had to go a little bit deeper and try to address some of the underlying barriers to uptake of these technologies, that they might be held back by uneven reputational perception by end clients. So we could design a certification system to say that these types of products within that class are high quality. It might be that there's not enough qualified maintenance operators of these technologies. And so we've been kind of over the course of this year launching this with a few partners to try and deepen our engagements with them, because also this requires a bit of effort. It's higher effort and a little bit more work on the side of MFIs as well, right? This isn't just making a nice new pamphlet or an advertising campaign and your clients come in. You're trying to work with suppliers or vendors, in that ecosystem, a little bit like the diagram you had shown, Natalia. I think if you're an MFI, a lot of the times you understand you have to strengthen a few parts of the ecosystem to ensure that a quality and service is delivered to clients. And if we go to the last slide, I'll kind of touch upon what we found to be one of the interesting learnings from this process is that we have had a lot of traction and a lot of interest from our partners around digital solutions. And we found this was a really interesting entry point for us in the fund to advocate for new product development. And so on this slide, you can see an anonymized example of a project that we're developing, and it's still in its early stages, but it comes in Georgia, where electricity prices were rising. Changes to the net metering regulation in the country allowed for more rooftop installations. And so working with this partner, we're helping to set up an online marketplace on their website, similar to what you might see in the US or in Western Europe, where clients can go onto the website, they can input key information relevant for a technical offer. That information gets transmitted to a pre-selected and vetted list of like high quality vendors and suppliers. They prepare a technical offer based on that specifications. It allows our partner then to add the financing package on top of that. And the goal is that the end client then gets hopefully a couple of responses with a very clear package on the product, the financing, the services involved. By fostering competition, we hope to bring down prices for those end clients, as well as enhance the overall service through capacity building workshops with the local ecosystem, bringing in experts using the technical assistance facility. And then lastly, recognizing that these are earlier stage technologies in some of our markets, and especially for certain client segments in these markets, we co-sponsor a small portion of upfront costs that could be the design of a system so it meets specific requirements, or in the case of irrigation, to ensure that it's the right amount of irrigation for the right plot of land. So I'll stop there, but those are the new initiatives that we've been rolling out, and we're still in our early stages, but we're finding some nice early successful examples, and we're looking to continue to extend these partnerships with the partner MFIs of our funds. So thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. You were perfect on time. And as we have planned this session is that after each presentation, we will have 5 minutes to receive direct questions to the panelists. So if you have any right away question, I see here one comment.
An advertisement.
Okay. An advertisement. Okay. Yeah, if you have any question, then you can turn on your microphone and let Jordan know. I wanted to know, Jordan, if you can tell more about what's the demand from all the technical assistance offers that you showed, your partner financial institutions. What are the trends? I guess like not everyone asks for the same, and it's not every year you have the same requests. So what trends or interests have you seen? And my second question, maybe also you can combine, is I see that you mentioned digital solutions, transversal. It's not like a key topic, but in all your examples, there is a component on that. I wanted to know if it's strategic that you target only energy efficiency, or like it's about environment protection, or is it planned in the future to have only strategy focused in digitization?
Yeah, sure. Let me know if I miss one of them as I talk through a couple of those topics. Those are great questions. I mean, I'll touch on the energy efficiency first, because as I mentioned, our fund is commercial. It does limit, in some ways, the activities we can do, right? It has to be commercially viable for us, for the MFI, and for the end borrower. And we also have, as I mentioned, very strict, sometimes, eligibility criteria, and they can be a bit limiting sometimes, especially for an MFI clientele. And so a very simple example is that in Bosnia, the maximum loan limit for an MFI is around 5,000 euros. And the average energy efficient agricultural investment that we finance is 20,000 euros. And so we're not allowed to use kind of secondhand tractors or secondhand replacements, even if they are an improvement. And those are just kind of the high eligibility and standards that were put in place when the fund was founded. And so that is probably why we focus a little bit more on energy efficiency, because that's the modality we found that really works for kind of all three levels. I would say on environmental protection, we don't do that so much directly through our lending activities. We obviously don't finance anything that would harm the environment, but I think we really through TA try to strengthen, not just strengthen the capacity of our partners, but also ensure that, there's a larger debate around, climate, environmental standards, green finance. And we have, I didn't include it in the slides because I didn't want to run over time, but we have, kind of dedicated thought leadership that we've branded the Green for All, where we try to take some of these elements and really tailor them to the needs and the profile of an MFI, of our MFI partners. And so I think when you ask about trends, it really depends on the type of financial institution that we work with. For our MFIs, marketing and product development is always key. I think, I'm going to generalize a little bit, right? But, clientele are typically a bit more rural, maybe a little less digitally literate. The MFIs play a really important role with the loan officers going out, being important parts of the community, knowing the clients in a very intimate way that maybe isn't the case for a larger bank. And so there is this informational, not gap, I would say an informational gap to bridge, but we also find that the end clients for MFIs are some of the hungriest to understand how these things work better, right? Because they might have less access to information than if we're in a large, retail bank in the capital of a country. And so that marketing and informational marketing, I would say, is always really appealing to those partners. With regards to the digitization, I think that's a newer development for our technical assistance facility. It's a little more complicated, I must admit. So we're having a lot of internal learnings around that too. As it's part of a broader system, we need to bring in different stakeholders within the MFI. We have to bring in vendors potentially within the ecosystem. You have to think about the client base and can they access certain types of technology? Can they not? So we have a lot of learning around that. But I think that even we have MFI partners who are dedicated to to rural poor female clientele, and they still have a huge demand on their side for digital services. So it might look a little bit different for each partner, but I think clearly the trend and the demand is there, and it's not going anywhere.
Thanks, Jordan. Lucia Spaggiari from MFR has one question. How do you see the evolution of mobilizing capital through green and sustainable bonds, issuers being financial institutions or funds, to serve WASH to the bottom of the pyramid? I guess, yeah, the first question will be if you target address also WASH, or is it in the future plans, or, and then, yeah, how do you see this?
No, it's a great question. I mean, the GGF, you know, from its inception is primarily an energy efficiency fund. So it was set up for energy efficiency measures as well as renewable energy, and it's not to say that we don't track other, you know, impact, but if you go to our impact report, we have, I think, 3 metrics. It's nice and simple, you know, and it's CO2 reduced, primary energy consumption reduced. And what we've introduced a couple of years ago was an impact measure we call resource efficiency. And that, I think, touches this a little bit, was the idea that we would lower our criteria for energy savings if there were then a corresponding and higher savings in resource efficiency. So that could be water, inputs into an industrial process, et cetera. We're fairly flexible in that regard. But for the time being, that hasn't been bottom of the pyramid in our experience. This is usually larger industrial clients who, by making a very large EE investment, are then having strong, large savings on an input or water, or financing, you know, kind of municipal wastewater treatment. So at a bit of a higher scale than bottom of the pyramid. And for us, the challenge is always, is there a commercial business case that works both, you know, for an MFI and for the end client? And just in the Southeastern Europe region, that's not a thematic that we encounter as much. So that also just might be a geographical difference between where we're active and maybe some of the other panelists today.
Yeah, I see with this question, and I guess this also with this session, Lucia, that next year we will be talking more about the nexus and how sectors will come together, because we are tackling the same challenges, and there are like a lot of experiences from both sides, and none of them have to start from scratch. And as well, like to identify which funds are working in which regions that have both needs very latent, and it will be not the case for Finance in Motion, but for other actors that are working in South Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa. And with this, so thank you, Jordan. And we went like 3 minutes over the over our Q&A for you. So we will continue with Alexandre Borm from Entrepreneur du Monde, and then we will have as well your 5 minutes questions, and the floor is now yours.
Thanks, Natalia, and thanks everyone for joining. So I'm Alexandre Borm, working for Entrepreneur du Monde in the Access to Energy department. So very briefly, Entrepreneur du Monde, what are we doing? We are supporting social and economic development of very deprived.
Alexandre,
can you hear me?
Yes, a little bit closer.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Where's my mic? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I have some background noise. I'm in Senegal right now, and I have to let the window open. So yeah, we are working in Asia, Africa, and France now, and Haiti also. And we are supporting these very poor communities to create business, access energy, and adapt to climate change in order to increase their independence. To do that, we create local social businesses that aim at profitability and hopefully being autonomous after 7 to 8 years. Our tools are social microfinance, access to energy, creation of very small businesses, and agro entrepreneurship. So next slide, please. Okay, thanks. So in the access to energy, we are working in 5 countries. We decided back in 2013 because we started microfinance in 1998, so more than 20 years ago, and we decided in 2013 that actually the people we were serving had, of course, more problem than just having a business working, and one of the main problem was the cooking and lighting costs and issues, and so we decided to launch separate programs to tackle this energy scarcity issue. These programs would build relevant product ranges, so solar lanterns, improved cook stoves, LPG stoves, and will set up efficient distribution channels to distribute them. The objective was and still is to sell to everyone in the countries, or to tackle everyone who were experiencing energy scarcity, and not only MFI beneficiaries, but also MFI beneficiaries. So we can say that basically these programs are the suppliers of the MFIs for relevant energy products. The next slide, please. Okay, so if you had a meeting on that this morning, maybe I won't come back on the impact of energy scarcity, but just briefly to mention that cooking and lighting, and cooking with low quality equipment, and using wood and charcoal to cook, and on the other side not having access to the grid has many impacts on the life of our beneficiaries, and all impacts are actually connected one to another. Of course, when you're cooking with wood and the forests are not managed, you have a huge environmental impact. And because you have a huge environmental impact, you also have an impact on your socio-economics, because the yields of the farms are getting lower, etc., etc. The health impact is also very important. I spent the last 4 days in meeting beneficiaries in Ziguinchor, Senegal, and you have to see how they cook. The fact that they cook using wood indoor, and all the fumes that it emits, and of course all this has impact on their budget. And some of our households, of our beneficiaries, spend up to 30% of their monthly income just to purchase wood, charcoal, or lamps. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is what all the models we've developed since 2015. So we started with the micro franchise. The idea was to build a product range that is relevant for the poor households. So we did a lot of surveys, qualitative and quantitative survey, to understand the needs, understand how they were cooking, how they were lighting, and how much they spent, and how much time and how much money they spent in doing so. And we designed a product range that could fit the needs, and also with prices. We designed the pricing scheme so that the products could be affordable cash or with a credit. These products, we are not manufacturing them, of course. They often exist. You can see below a solar lantern that is manufactured by Delight, an improved cook stove that are manufactured everywhere in West Africa and Asia, and also small LPG stoves. These are typically the products we distribute. So we sell them, as I said, either cash through a network of distributors. So we set up a network of retailers that are micro-franchised, meaning they receive a training, they receive social marketing tools, and we come to do promotional events quite often nearby their shops to boost their sales. We also sell through microfinance institutions, mainly our own microfinance institutions, because in the 5 countries where we are operating, we also have MFIs that are working. And here, so when I say we, it's the access to energy programs. Huh? And here we do basically the promotion, the after sales, and the distribution. So, and what happened is that the sales through microfinance were not high enough, according to us, and we couldn't bridge the affordability gap. Basically, many people were willing to purchase our solar lanterns or gas stoves but couldn't because they didn't have a loan, and we didn't find the right model to work with the MFIs. Back in 2017, we decided that we could test something else, and so we launched a program in the Philippines doing pay-as-you-go. So maybe I won't explain very much what is pay-as-you-go, but it's basically a way to do in-house financing, to install a solar home system within a household, and then the household pay on a monthly basis until they purchase the kit. And if they don't pay, the kit is not working. They have to pay for the kit to work. So it's a way to have a warranty on the leasing by taking the kit as the warranty. So basically, we tested to provide loan without MFI. The results are a bit mitigated. We realized that microfinance methodology is actually lacking when you do pure sales with very basic credit scoring. And so we are actually coming back a bit on this model and trying to work more with MFIs also in the Philippines. And the last model we tested, and we are still testing, is a microgrid. So here it's totally different. The idea is also to bridge the affordability gap and to say, okay, if people can't afford products, why won't we sell them the energy? So basically to do energy as a service model where we install solar home systems in all households in the same village. We connect all the solar home systems one to another, and with a technology developed by a startup named Okra, the systems are sharing power automatically. So it creates a microgrid, full solar microgrids, and totally decentralized. And then we can remotely monitor their usage of electricity, and we can invoice them based on how much they consume. So we invoice them on a monthly basis, and basically they pay for the electricity that they consume. What is really interesting here in this model is that compared to the micro franchise, we do have knowledge of our customers, and the customers are gathered in the same place because they are in the same village. So we can do group meeting, and we can once again have somehow a group meeting methodology as the microfinance. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are our achievements so far since 2015, 16. We provided products to 133,000 beneficiaries, mainly in Haiti and Burkina Faso. So mainly through our micro franchise network. One very important achievement is that we have carbon finance program registered, which is really important for us because the distribution aspect and the after sales aspect of the model is very OPEX intensive, especially the last mile distribution and last mile after sales aspect. So for us, carbon finance is a way to leverage on this model and to basically add money in top of just the small margin we make when we sell the product. So the idea is basically you have 10,000 customers using input stoves or LPG stoves, and you monitor them on a yearly basis. And through a series of calculations, you can say that thanks to our action, we reduced the emission reduction by 40,000 tons of CO2. And this is audited, registered in a label called the Gold Standard, and then you can sell your VER, which is verified emission reductions, to companies that want to outsource their emission reduction. Next slide, please.
Alexandra, you have 1 minute to close.
Oh, okay. Okay, so an important point maybe here is that because through the micro franchise model, we lose a bit the contact with our end users because the sales are made through retailers. And one big challenge is actually to find a way to get feedback from our end users and to do that efficiently. So we discussed with many companies who have very interesting digital solutions for that. But we still have this issue, which is how to have the contact number from the distributor, from the retailer. So this is bit an unsolvable issue for us. And just to say that we decided not to open new program anymore. What we decided to focus on now is actually to have all of our MFIs, because we have more MFIs that we have access to energy programs. So to have all of our MFIs internally build an access to energy loan and find local suppliers to provide the products, rather than creating a local company to distribute, doing the opposite and starting from the microfinance institutions. Yeah, I think that's that can be it.
I guess we will be sharing also the slides. Sam, is it like this? With the registered participants, they will receive materials, correct?
Yeah, not immediately, but yes, that's right. They can be shared around.
Okay, yeah, I mean, for those that are interested, like also to see all the details from the presentation, that you can see them afterwards. But I will say, if somebody has a question for Alexandro, you can post it right away, or we can continue with Alan from Red Camif. Yeah, here there is one question. So congratulations, Alexandra, on the very interesting work and capacity to test different models. And also the congratulations for Entrepreneur du Monde. For the purposes of sustainability, how do you see the quality of the repayment analysis capacity for the quality of receivables in the pay-as-you-go model?
Yes, so thanks for the question. I mean, it's the main question. So how do you ensure an analysis on the capacity to pay while still being very flexible, which is the whole purpose of pay-as-you-go. And the whole purpose of pay-as-you-go is to install fast, collect fast, and then move to another village. This is the whole East African model. And if you look at East Africa, actually, they have default rates which are above 15%. So and we have default rates that are above 15% in the Philippines and Burkina Faso. So the question is, how do you do this credit scoring, basically, in a simple way? So we are discussing with our MFI colleague to set in place. So what the pay-as-you-go actors say is that you ask people to pay a down payment, so which is 10 to 15% of the whole price. And if they pay this down payment, then you can be sure that they will repay, which is actually not true, because it totally forgets all the difficult lives these beneficiaries are having and all the trouble they can went through. And so it means doing credit scoring, but it also means being able to adapt, as the microfinance is doing, to the accident of life. So yeah, I don't have the answer, but we are working on that.
Okay. What do you say, Lucia? Thank you. Okay. So I guess if you were in the sessions before from MFR, there is this partnership also with Gogla, and they are doing assessments and monitoring data on pay-as-you-go. So these experiences that you are having are very interesting also for Gogla and MFR. With this, let's continue. Okay, and that's what I meant about the other experiences that you have to share, Alexandra. But let's continue now with Alan Perez from Red Camif, project coordinator and also specialist in green finance, with whom we have organized the Green Finance Forum in the region like some weeks ago. Alan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Natalia, and good evening, everyone. And also thank you for this opportunity to share what Red Camif is doing to promoting the green finance and WASH inclusion in Central America and the Caribbean. Next slide, please, Natalia. So what is Red Camif? Red Camif is a regional microfinance network. We represent 7 of the national microfinance network, each in each country of the Central America and also in Dominican Republic. At the same time, those national networks represent 133 microfinance institutions. And you will find a financial association, cooperative, NGO, banks, commercial bank, private banks, and so on. At the same time, those financial institutions, they serve around 1.5 million clients with financial and non-financial products and services in the region. Next slide, please. So in Central America, the main environmental program is related with the climate change. Is one of the most affected areas in the world affected by the climate change. And we will see an increase in temperatures in the regions, also an accentuated variability in the summer and winter periods. You can experiment 1 year of a long dry season, and the next year you will see, or you will find an extreme hurricane season with 4 or 5 hurricanes almost at the same time affecting the region, the countries that are inside of the region. Those are combined with the degradation of natural resources in the region. And this degradation is affecting the quality and the availability of water for human and animal consumption, and the reduction of soils, nutrients, and of course, the primary forest. All this, of course, has consequence for the rural families. Well, not just for the rural families, of course, but are the most affected by the climate change, at least, and are the most vulnerable in the regions. And those families are the clients of the microfinance institution. So what we can see, or what we are seeing in the region, is the income reduction for this micro and small enterprise in the region, the reduction of the productivity, and also increasing their climate, economic, and social vulnerability. That, of course, has an impact in the quality of life of the rural families. Next, Natalia, please. So, under this context, how RedCamif is fostering the green finance and WASH approach? Okay, we know that the poorest population in the region are the mainly affected by or the most affected by the climate change and the degradation of the natural resources. We know that the clients, this population are the clients of the microfinance sector. So there is a need, an implicit and explicit demand to deploy actions for the survival of the small and medium enterprise families, and also for the microfinance itself. Just to put an example, in Central America, in the last hurricane seasons, at least the 40% of the microfinance institution that belongs to RedCamif were affected in terms of the infrastructures and the human life by the hurricanes. So it's a direct effect of the microfinance itself. Under this premise, RedCamif with the national network decided to start to promote the green finance and the WASH approach. I have to mention that we have the Value Cooperation and the Value Alliance with ADA from Luxembourg. They are support us in order to promote these approaches or these methodologies. We are working around, we had 10 years, more than 10 years working with ADA, and we are using under this concept of financial inclusion. Under this concept, we are implementing what we call the innovation in financial products, working with 34 microfinance institutions in the regions. And you will see how we work in the next slide. Natalia, please, next slide. So how is the model that we implement, and who are the key actors at the moment that the model works? We start, and we mentioned ADA. ADA provides us financial and technical assistance in order to implement methodologies and tools related with the green finance approach, and also the WASH approach. At the same time, RedCamif support those microfinance institutions that are interested to promote or to develop some type of financial products, some type of methodology, some kind of approaches related with the green finance and the WASH approach. When I talk about the green finance is wide, the concept for us. We include renewable energy, we include best environmental practices, we include, and of course, at the same time, at the same speed, is include the implementing of financial products and also the non-financial products and services. At the same time, okay, RedCamif help or foster this, support the microfinance institution with financial resources, training, and knowledge in order to implement all these approaches. At the same time, and is usually at the beginning, most of these microfinance doesn't know how to start to construct or to build this concept into the institutions. So what they do usually is looking for service suppliers in order to develop not just the financial product, but also develop the part of non-financial activities. We are talking about rural extension. We are talking about the technologies that they want to implement or to offer to the microfinance, to the micro and small entrepreneurs. We are talking about the know-how to implement water and sanitation activities or water sanitation facility into the house of the people in the region. So the microfinance now at this time they build or they elaborate the financial product, and also they elaborate all the aspect of technical assistance, all the knowledge, the green financial education, and so on. So they offered the next step, or the next actor are the micro and small and medium enterprises who start to implement the new practices, to implement the new technologies, to construct or to improve the wash facilities into the houses. And we are talking about a wide type of technologies, practices, and so on that they can do. So the microfinance provides to the clients, we are talking about working capital, loans for investment, know-how of environmental practices, and also training and technical assistance. The microfinance can do in two ways. One way is doing directly, in terms of they provide the funding and also the technical assistance to the clients, or work in a closer relationship with service suppliers. The service suppliers can provide the non-financial technical aspect to the clients. Next, Natalia, please. So in this table, you can see the main results that we have up to date. We are talking about the two approaches that we are promoting, the type of financial products that are already designed in each of these methodologies or concepts, the number of MFI. Right now we have 34 microfinance institutions, also the number of clients, and example of practice or technology that are implemented. Each microfinance decide what to do. We can see, for example, a microfinance institution that they decide to implement, I don't know, the micro leasing in order to promote the solar panels in rural areas where it doesn't have the national energy in the region. Or some of them decide to just to work to implement to promote or implement a biodigester in some areas in the rural areas. All this depends on the market study that they deploy before to start to develop this project. And next, please, Natalie. This is a collage of pictures and photos of example of the type of investment. I don't want to extend them here. You will see the type of technology, the type of practices, the type of wash facility that already the microfinance are financing. And also this combined with technical assistance, like I said, that could be in a direct way by the microfinance institution or using or working with suppliers. Next, please. So the last one, what are the challenges and the next steps for us? First, the inclusion of environmental risk management in the internal and external process for microfinance institutions. There is an increasing vulnerability, not just for the microfinance institution, but also for the clients in terms of how to cope with the climate change. So this part of the environmental risk management is important to start to doing here in the region. Also, the evaluation and monitoring, the sector needs to know what are they doing and how to improve. So we need to go to the next step, what is to systemize all the information and that we already have with the microfinance. Educated funding conditions to support microfinance greens initiative. Look, there is a reality. We will see every week news related that the promotion of the new climate funding and so on, but on the reality, at least for the Central America microfinance institution, is quite difficult to access to this type of funding, and they have to use own funds in order to promote this type of methodologies and approaches. Other of the aspect is expanding the offer of financial and non-financial products and services that lead to certify the contribution in reducing the carbon footprint of the clients. And of course, the use of new technologies to monitor the results and impact of the microfinance and related with the families and their productive activities, and the digitalization of the financial and non-financial services, not just to substitute the direct relation with the clients, but also to accelerate or to increase the number of clients and families, the access to new knowledge related with the promotion of the climate change or the introduction of new technology or technical assistance. So last one, Natalie. Next slide, please. Yeah, and thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. I will say, like, from this, what you are doing, we will also explore your role in the implementation of the Green Index 3.0, that we will be talking in our next session presentation of the Green Index 3.0 and Dimension 7. That could be included in the role of the CAMIF promoting environment protection. So we will have here now some five-ish minutes for questions. And I see here in the chat all the links that we wanted to share with you about the work and the different projects that we are conducting. Will come more, so you can explore the data tools that we were discussing at the beginning for assessing needs at client level in access to energy, to water sanitation and hygiene, to food security, customer satisfaction, and so on, using digital tools, the project impact that, impact-driven and action-based research, where, for instance, the case of Palmis in Haiti or Fansoto in Senegal, and many more institutions have participated, where we have trained more than 100 loan officers using tools covering more than 8 countries in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Asia, for assessing needs at household-based. Then we have the link for the Green Inclusive and Climate Smart Finance Action Group, where we are gathering there a set of tools, publications, webinars that we have been having in the topic of green inclusive finance, where you can visit them, and also access to an online library with publications on the subject, and also to be up to date what is happening in the sector and in development of standards. Also the work from Finance in Motion. And you can also add Jordan about the Green for Growth. The link, then we have the links also from Entrepreneur du Monde, the cases in Cambodia, and their work in access to energy. And from Red Camif, also you can explore the Green Finance Forum that we had at the beginning of this month, and right at the also at the start in parallel with the COP26, and the support that they give to microfinance institutions in fostering green finance, that, as Alan showed us, you support in many ranges, from climate smart agriculture up to access to clean energy technologies. So is there a direct question to Alan that you would like to pose? We will have Alan as well in the next session, and we appreciate that you have woken up today so early to be here. I think one advantage of this type of event that we miss the physical one, but without this one we wouldn't have someone from Senegal, Nicaragua, and Frankfurt at the same time. Are you based in Frankfurt, Jordan?
Yes, I am. You can. That's why I have the screen behind me, so you don't have to see the dreary, cold Northern European sky in late November.
Well, mine is colder even in Berlin.
This is true.
Yeah, I guess the question that was posed by Lucia about starting also in WASH comes to you, Alexandre, after the results that you have seen and the needs that you have in each of your country, if water supply, drinking water supply or sanitation has come also of interest for Entrepreneur du Monde also to address.
So we were discussing that actually 2 hours ago with my colleague. When we went in the villages, we really asked qualitative questions on cooking and lighting, and we realized that accessing drinking water was actually also an issue. And we are not tackling this issue right now because there are some very, I mean, this is a very touchy topic, drinking water. You can't screw up when you provide a solution. But definitely in terms of distribution channel and social marketing, it's exactly the same. So yeah, we might consider saying it.
Yeah, this is exactly the same, are the same approaches, but the quality insurance is different. I have a guest here that wants to participate.
Yeah, it is. And you have the both options, either to do an infrastructure, very capex intensive solution, which is basically building as OAV, Water and Life, are doing in the slums in Manila, building an infrastructure to deliver water, or to do light portable solutions, such as what we are doing.
Okay, is there anything else that you would like to share, recommendations for the other stakeholders we have here? We have here participants from ADA, Impulse, MFR, e-MFP, and also students in last stage of their masters. If you have messages that you would like to share before we close, this is your chance to do it. I think it was very clear, your whole presentations, and we will be sharing as well these presentations and recordings. One question just came, or one comment. Yeah, about the links. You can copy the links. We will be opening the chat so that you can copy them before we close. And then invite you to participate at our next session that starts in 10 minutes on the presentation of the Green Index and the Dimension 7. Thank you very much to all.